There's a couple of people here that have prepaid for the ritual class. I want to tell them specifically that I want to give them the access codes right away. And I also need your address so we can mail you the textbook. We have a 500-page reference book on how to do the initiations. Niger assures me he's going to sign up, so we'll see if he's good to his word. I suspect he might well be. So looking forward. All right. So enough of that. We got the recording on. All right. So Agbo Ato, blessing of long life. Akabo, welcome. Adupoy Ori Egun, and we thank the ancestors for their wisdom. Ire Lona Lafia Wae, we ask for peace on earth. I would also ask, I got to think about how to say this in Yoruba, but I would ask for healing from the confusion and the pain. Also, in the 60s and the 70s, into the 80s, I was active in the civil rights movement on the legal end. I challenged a lot of what I would characterize as racist laws. And I actually thought we had made some progress, although I got a little discouraged with the inequities in the court. But this week we took a huge step backwards in terms of negating the influence of laws to protect the equal voting rights. The media has not explained it clearly, but to make it a long story short, there's a thing called gerrymandering where you can make odd-shaped voting districts that will affect the number of representatives from minority areas and let's call it majority areas, and that arbitrarily drawing those with race as a factor was declared illegal by the Voting Rights Act. Gosh, that had to have been in the late 60s. You remember, Baba, what was, late 60s. I'm sure it was. And now that's been negated and we've been diverted back to the way things were 60 years ago. It's just really disappointing, shameful, and a deliberate assault on the ability of people to get along and experience what the joys of being part of a family. So we're going to provide some medicine to work around that, work through that, hopefully to change all that. So I want to introduce Baba Falokun, for those that don't know him. We met in Cuba in 1992. We kind of reconnected after being out of touch for a minute. But in terms of the theological concepts that I struggle to understand, Baba's been a huge, huge help. He's a theologian in his own right. He had a distinguished career as a Catholic theologian for a hot minute, and then segued into more traditional veins. Am I doing that accurately? I saw you make a horrible face there, Baba. Forgive me, but you do have a solid academic background in this subject. It's impressive, and whether we continue, I studied Christian theology as well, and obviously no longer embrace that. But to the extent that you study it, it gives you some tools that can be applied to any spiritual tradition. So we're blessed to have Baba being a part of our community with that skill set. So I'm going to read the first sentence. Are you ready to dive into this, Baba?
Yes, and anybody else who may want to contribute.
Absolutely. This is always a communal conversation. Do you want to add anything to what I've said so far?
No, I'm good.
All right. So, Elapoki, any esiso wa soro dun o dun ko wo wa sho dun. Just to remind everybody, this is the Oriki that's a part of the Odu Ogunda Osa that is specifically identified as the Oriki that puts people in possession with the spirit of Elah. Going into the possession with the spirit of Elah is the point of Ifa initiation. This Oriki is really the center point of that ritual as I do it, and as my lineage does it, and as I've experienced it in Africa. For some reason, there is a belief in certain circles that Ifa priests do not go into possession. In my experience, that's simply not true. And part of the reason I believe that art has been lost is because of the influence of because of non-Ifa influences on our faith. There's a great deal of misogyny, meaning prejudice towards women. And the real key to going into possession during Tefa is the behind-the-scenes work of the women of Iami, who have largely been demonized in the diaspora. And that's just simply a huge disservice to our faith, to our understanding of our faith. And I would argue to our ability to go into possession with the spirit of Elah. The women of Iami have the key to open the portal that allow men and women to connect with their Iponri, their higher self. And we call that the spirit of Elah, from the Elysian Allah, meaning the light. It's the light that illuminates all the Orishans and opens all our chakras and gives us the ashe to both guide a person towards their highest destiny and the ashe to heal deep wounds, both personally and communally. So that first sentence says, the spirit of manifestation has appeared. I was talking to Bob about earlier today during my initiation. The spirit of Elah appeared in the room without a medium. Let me say that again. The spirit of Elah appeared in the initiation room without a medium. It was a bright light that illuminated the whole room. There was no electricity in that particular room. I have no doubt that I was blessed to witness the spirit of Elah in a physical manifestation. I have argued for 40 years until we're able to invoke Elah at that level in the diaspora. We're not really fully accessing the ashe of Ifa. And I would argue that the reason we're not doing that is because of the overwhelming denigration of women with our faith. It's not consistent with the traditional theology of our faith. So this opening line is, the spirit of manifestation has appeared. That's a real thing. In Ifa, people say what they mean and mean what they say. They don't make that up. They're not going to say it appeared just because that sounds cute. It's a part of the initiation process. It's the indicator of whether or not the invocation for Elah has been effective. The other indicator is to see an expansion in the aura of the Awo. Now, seeing auras is much simpler than most people realize. Your aura is a deflection of light. I don't know if you can see here, right there for me. So everything behind that point under my finger is blurred. That blur is caused by the fact that there's light emanating from my consciousness, as there is from everybody's. And when you do initiation, the light expands, and you can tell you've done your job. That's the whole point, to illuminate consciousness. And when that occurs, your aura expands. It's not complicated. It's very straightforward. It's a tangible, objective test. And we need to be conscious of that, I believe. The friend has returned to this year's festival. The celebration returns. So every year, there's a ritual in traditional Ifa in Africa in which the spirit of Elah is invoked. It's invoked on behalf of the community, for the community, in front of the community, not just for Ifa priests. It's not a secret. It's not done behind closed doors. The spirit of Elah is invoked, and it manifests as white light, and it's an affirmation of the power of our faith, I believe. Baba, do you want to say something?
Yeah, Baba. Just getting back into this Oriki, in my study of the Oriki, I think there's various moments of the Oriki, and this is what I call the luminous moment. Ella Poke says that which is unseen, as Baba was saying, now becomes visible. Is that moment when the spirit of manifestation pierces the veil, and it's the moment of appearance, the moment of descent. So Poke, and I, tried to do some research on this word, and Poke means this appearance, this to emerge, to appear, to break the surface. And this is interesting because, as Baba was saying, it's not a metaphor. It's really a phenomenological reality, particularly as Baba mentioned in the space of Igbo Do. And Ella then appears as light, as he was mentioning this visible being. And when we were talking this afternoon, we were trying to understand how this actually happens, and Baba was making reference to the feeling that overcame the space, because the appearance of Ella is something that we can feel in our skin, we can feel it in the bones. And the important thing about that is that it's a resonance. And this resonance changes the room, and it changes the air. And what is important about that is that in that moment, the body becomes the instrument. So Ella Poke announces that the pattern of creation has arrived. The blueprint of creation, Ella Musin, is accessible, and the field of repair is open. So this is very kind of direct counter to the logocentric worldview of the Western world, which insists that only what can be measured exists. And Ifa is saying that existence is relational. And so if the shrine is ready, the light will come. And so for us as Awos, the proof is, we're not looking for proof, we're looking for presence. And this Ini Esiso Wasoro Odun, Ini Esi is the returning friend. So this is for me very interesting because it refers to the Ella, the spirit of manifestation, as both a cosmic principle and a relational being. Ella is not some distant deity somewhere off in space someplace, but this suggests that Ella is kin intelligence who returns in rhythm with the cycles of the earth. And then Odun is not, in my analysis of this, just referring to the calendar festival. It's a statement about returning to a particular type of rhythm, a time of alignment, a time of a ritual process. So Ella comes to restore the ancient pact between the earth and the original pattern. And so, as Baba mentioned, this is often chanted during the annual Ifa ceremonies, and it's a remembrance of continuity. And it says to me that you are never truly abandoned. Maybe sometimes you can be asleep, but you're never truly abandoned. Did we do Baba Odunko Wa Sodun? The celebration has returned. And so this is just kind of this affirmation of the cyclical time. Again, very different from Western culture, which promotes a very linear progress. This Oriki says there's the opportunity to always return. And so the season of alignment with Allah has come again. What you missed last time, you can receive it now. The portal is open. So this is a beautiful invitation to readiness. So the celebration here is not about revelry, but it's about ritual attunement and realignment with Allah's frequency in the collective body. Ashe Baba.
Yes. let's touch briefly on the idea. In the diaspora, there's the notion that the days of the week are designated for offerings to specific orishas. Okay, so I want everybody to hear me now and believe me later. That is not true. There's no basis for that in Africa. I've never seen that over 40 years. I have lots and lots of people from Africa that I've spoken to it, and the notion that abodes are done on certain days of the week is something that was made up. I actually know the person who made it up. I know when they made it up, and we're still having that conversation. At some point, we need to trust the wisdom of the ancestors and give it some credibility, I believe. So, but the point is that we do have prayer cycles, and those prayer cycles are about the rhythm of elevation. They're about the rhythm of personal elevation. They're about how we go through the process for expanding our consciousness. It's not making an offering to different orishas. The 4-day week is life, death, transformation, and rebirth to expand consciousness. And at the point of rebirth, you start the cycle again. It's a cyclical reference to the process of growing and growing in alignment with the ability to understand nature, which leads us to the next sentence, Iroko Oko, Iroko Oko, Iroko Oko. When you see a word or a series of words repeated 3 times, it's at the core of the invocation process. It's called Ofo Oshe. So Iroko is from the Elysian E, the letter I, next word Ro, R-O, and then Oko, which is the principle of male virility. Oko is the word for husband, the word for penis, the word for farm. And it's also a reference to what I would call expansive Ashe. Ashe is, from a scientific point of view, is the electricity that animates creation. Ela, or Allah, is the electrical impulse in the world, which we would call masculine. It's in juxtaposition to Odu, which is the container for that electricity that allows the world to come into being. Right? Those are 2 distinct and different forms of energetic interaction, which sometimes get smothered in non-traditional ideas of gender. And then we need to move beyond that and look at what's being spoken of in terms of energetic principles, all right? Ashe, or male energy, moves away from source in a straight line. Female energy, for lack of a better word, again, moves from source back towards itself. Does that make sense? So in every packet of energy, there's 2 seashells, one moving towards expansion, the other moving towards contraction. And the polarity between those 2 energetic patterns generates new patterns. It's called evolution. And so the connection to Elah is a connection with the what we call the masculine expansive light Ashe, which is characterized in Ifa scripture as masculine. It's called Baba sometimes. It's called Ashe sometimes. It's called Ashe. It's called Ofun or Kunran, the power of the word of male energy. It's called Oko. Those are all references to what we could call expansive energy. And it's a key point. Elah represents what Nikola Tesla identified as a longitudinal light beam. All right. Now we understand from Western science that light comes frequently in the form of a wave. And a light wave starts from a place of source. It forms like a series of W patterns, and as it moves away from source, it diminishes in its energetic impact on the world around it. All right, you understand? In other words, a light wave emerges from the source and dissipates. But that's not Elah, that's Ashe. Elah is a longitudinal light beam, which increases its energy as it moves away from the source. Elah, as a phenomenon in nature, has a point of origin and it keeps expanding until it hits the edge of the universe, and then and only then does it move back towards its point of energy. So the whole concept of Elah is the theoretical, if we can look at it metaphysically and theologically for a moment, that's the descriptive language for explaining center point energy, free energy, unlimited ability to transform the world we live in. It's the origin of the ability of human beings to co-create the universe. So when we say Iroko Oko, the Ro, descent, Oko of the masculine principle. Okay, so we can take it even further. Oko means farm, man, penis, husband, staff sometimes. But Oko, you can also create an illusion. O, spirit of code understanding. So Oko, in addition to being the expansive nature of Ashe and creation, is also the source of understanding. Understanding is a conscious thing that we associate with male energy in scriptural references, where the feminine principle is one of empathy, which we associate with the heart. It's not counter to male understanding, but it works in conjunction with it to expand our consciousness. To understand something without feeling it is to have no context, is to have no sense of wisdom, is to have no ability to apply the understanding to the real world. So it takes the two working together to form the foundation for the expansion of consciousness. That ability to coordinate those two forms of energy is the foundation of Ifa spiritual discipline. All right. So Iroko Oko, anytime a phrase is repeated 3 times in Oriki, it's call and response. Iroko Oko, Iroko Oko, Iroko Oko, Iroko Oko. And that is designed to align ourselves with that particular aspect of creation. All right. And so Oroko Oko, that's all part of the invocation for light to appear in Igbodu. And when it appears, the Awos take their tapper. Anybody got a tapper they can hold up and show? There you go. The Iroke is called Iroke, not Iroko, Iroke. So it's Iro, the descent of okay. So it's the movement to Oko is the movement from mountain to source. All right. It's talking about the polarity. Iroke invokes Iroko. The fact that those words are similar is theologically significant. So when the light appears in Igbodu, the Awos shake their Iroke and they say, Hepwa Baba, meaning welcome male energy into their own. You understand? Not male energy to be patriarchal, not male energy to be in charge, not male energy in terms of telling people what to do, but male energy that forms the balance between male and female polarity, which is at the essence of co-creation. Right? So the next sentence, Odun Oni Siko, Ela Poki, Ela Ro, Ela Ro, Ela Ro, Ko Wag Bure. So, so the first Odun Oni Siko, we're saying the annual festival has returned. La Poke, we just described what that means. So Ela Ro, when you say Ela Ro, you're literally saying the spirit of light possesses me. Now you wouldn't say in an Oriki, in Odu Ifa, the spirit of light possesses me, unless you have an intention to be possessed by the spirit of light. I don't know how clear it can be for those that don't believe Ifa priests go into possession, but the Odu says we're invoking that. We're asking for that. Do we want that to happen? And when the phrase Ela Poki is spoken in the context of Egbe Ifa, that's the call. That's the thing the leader says. The response is Sho Ka Le, from Osho Ika Ile, meaning going out of our body into the realm of mothers brings the power of Ela to earth. That's the response. I mean, those are clear linguistic indicators of what's happening, what we're invoking, what the dynamic is, what it is we're supposed to accomplish by saying that Oriki as part of initiation and as part of the annual festival. Baba?
Yes. Again, as I mentioned, that I see the Oriki has various moments or movements, and so this is one of the next moments and movements in this Oriki. And here we have some of the most powerful vibrational technologies in all of Ifa chant forms, and that carries, as Baba was mentioning, this architecture of descent, interdimensional alignment, and sacred receptivity. So there's three pieces here. One is the Sokale chorus, which Baba just talked about, El Aro Sokale. And then there's the quantum string metaphors, and then the lines about interdimensional perception through the opening of Iwaju, our chakra. So this idea of El Aro, Kowabure, it's a direct invocation, right? And particularly when we say this in Igbo Do, this is when light descends and can appear in Igbo Do, and it's a matter of whether or not we're ready for that. So it's not speaking that. What I think is really interesting when the comparison is made to Western science, it's somewhat important. Not that has to justify or explain our sacred reality, but it's interesting because in many of these cases, like in these verses here, we're not talking about a metaphorical descent. We're talking about a vibrational descent. And this is where frequency finds form. Okay, frequency meets with form. So El Aro, it carries this ashe of invitation, not as a demand, but as a request, as a call. And then Sokale, to descend. So this is very beautiful because this is where we ask Ela, enter the body, touch the altar, and align the field. Kowabure, come and receive goodness, is a very beautiful relational gesture. And this is, I think, a lot of what Baba is underlying of how this is relational. Ifa is not a technical approach to spirituality. It's a relational approach. So we're not calling Ela for power. We're calling Ela offering the goodness of our prayers, our attention, our open-heartedness. And so this creates a reciprocal relationship. And so this is important because Ella, this tells us that Ella doesn't come and appear where there exists entitlement. Ella descends, Ella rule, where there is readiness. Baba?
Yeah, listen, and that last couple of words of that line is then leads into the next line. Let's see if I got the right. Yes, Kowag Bure, meaning Holy Spirit, descend to accept our prayers. This is saying that the dynamic of having prayers heard and responding to requires an altered state of consciousness. It requires that we go into possession. It requires that we connect to our higher self. It requires that we align our head and heart so that if we go into a prayer circle with the idea of exploiting our community, trying to look like we know something, try to control others, all those emotions stand in the way of the altered state of consciousness rooted in Iwa Pele that we call possession by Elah, and make it impossible for our prayers to be heard. And so that leads into the next line, which is Elah takun wa'o, Elah ro, iti re re, Elah takun kowag bure. This is really a significant line, in my opinion. Holy Spirit with string descend. String. That's what is it? Where is that? Yes, that's this image on my you all see that little diamond shaped thing right above my heart. That's the Ifa symbol for what Western quantum physics calls quantum entanglement. There is only one consciousness, the consciousness of God, and we're all connected to it. That's the meaning of the word Iponri, or higher self. There's trillions of Oris, but there's only one Iponri, and we're all connected to it through what's called quantum entanglement. And Ifa Oriki is clearly identifying that connection as a string. And that's what is called in Western science, string theory. Hello, nothing new under the sun. Everything is connected through an invisible filament, let's call it, which means that we have access to all wisdom, all power, all understanding, that we can use our consciousness to stay in the present moment, move into the past, move in the future. The fact that we're connected to the Creator through a string is affirmation that time is an illusion. We only experience time when we separate from Source. And so the movement into connection with Source, which we call movement into Ije Ogbe consciousness, moves us to a place in consciousness where all realities exist in the same dimension in the same moment. It's really giving us a fundamental picture of what the purpose of prayer is. You know, if we can't experience empathy, we cannot connect to our string. All right. And so, for purposes of liturgical clarity, string is also referred to as hair or a beard. Irumale, from the Elysian, the beard of the house of light. That's a reference to the idea that everything's connected. It's not saying that spirits have long white beards and we grab the hair and now everything's good. It's a symbolic reference to the nature of reality itself. All right. So Elah Ro, we're asking Elah to possess us again. Iti Re Re. E.T. Re Re. So E.T. means ear. Re Re is the source of good fortune. So the ability to hear the response of spirit is what makes our prayers effective. And then we return to the earlier phrase, Elah takun kowag bure. Holy Spirit with string descend to accept our prayers, to place us in the context of interconnectedness. And that context is symbolized by the weave of a mat. We only do rituals sitting on a mat so that we're embracing the fundamental spiritual symbolic message of everything's interconnected. The mat has that function and also has that triggering effect on our psyche. We sit on the mat and enter a holy space in which our altered consciousness connects us to the source of consciousness and the source of empathy, and allows for the interaction to be effective in terms of the need to have a deeper understanding of the world around us as a part of the process of problem solving. Are we ready for the next sentence? I think we are. Inu irere, elatakun ko bure oju rere. So that's saying that when you repeat a word in Yoruba, you're talking about the source of the thing. So we got 3 roads of access to the source of good fortune in all of creation. The first one is Inu Rere, hear the lips, hear the voice, hear what Spirit's trying to tell us. Use the connection from our connection to higher self. Use that connection to hear what Spirit's telling us. Elatakun kogbure. We're asking Spirit to descend so that we can use that information from the Spirit to Oju Rere, meaning to see the path towards good fortune. Oju, eyes, all right? So we hear what the Spirit says, we ask to be connected to Spirit, and then we get a vision of what expanded consciousness looks like. That's the whole process of divination in 3 sentences, right there. All right? So anything short of that, anything different than that, anybody who believes that it's all about explaining stuff and telling people what to do and letting people know I'm really smart and I know everything and you got to obey me and all that nonsense is just that, nonsense. This is a guided effort by a group of people to link their higher selves in a way that facilitates communication with nature itself, which is why everything we do is rooted in Iwa Pele, from the reason Iwa Ope Ile, meaning I come to earth from the invisible realm to greet the earth. And we greet the earth because we greet our teachers, our elders, our source of inspiration and wisdom. So our job as human beings, based on the language of Ifa, is to learn from nature itself how to create abundance in the world. Ray Ray. And Ifa says we're born Omo Ray Ray, meaning children of good fortune. There's no original sin. Iwa Ray Ray means child of innocence. And we develop Iwa Pele, meaning good character, when we stray from our original intention and divine obligation to be good people, I think. Oh, wait a minute. Ivan, now we're in trouble. Ivan's got his take on that. Yeah, Ivan, talk to us. Did you hear me? Ivan?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The totality of what you and Baba, both you and Baba are explaining is that alignment with your with Allah or the spirit of Allah or your higher self, you should, after that, you should divine, and that will let you know where you focus at or where you put your attention at. So the prayer that you have requested puts you in alignment with your destiny so it can come to pass?
Yeah, sort of. If you really understand the process, and if you've been blessed to experience it, and if you've been blessed to see the spirit of Allah present and to feel that energy, I am of the opinion that divination is just confirmation you were seeing correctly. Okay. It's kind of an after the fact, oh yeah, okay, I got that right. And in fact, many of the older diviners that I've seen and been to, you walk in the room, they start telling you your business. Then they throw the opele and they say, yeah, I was right, go away. So it's a little different take on it. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Bob. Do the little orbs that come when you're divining, would you consider that also as part of that, or
Yes, the orbs in the language of science are quanta. Quanta means a packet of energy that's measurable. Quanta, in the form of an orb, is pure unformed consciousness. And I don't want to get into this today necessarily, but it's pure unformed consciousness in the form of a plasma packet. So when plasma shows up in your ritual, you can imprint your intention on it.
Ashe.
So that becomes very important. All right. And I'll tell you why it becomes important. There's the ability of human consciousness to imprint an orb means that there's orisha that reflect the nature of reality, and there's orisha that are pure projections of nonsense. And they both respond to the same name depending on the intention of the group you're a part of. You can call the spirit of Ogun and ask him to protect your drug deal, and a spirit will come. I would argue that I call a spirit of Ogun, and it's not the same spirit, which I know is terribly confusing. But it's why, as a community, we want to keep our intentions elevated. In European magic, it's called egregorious, the ability to invoke a demon. In Ifa, it's called Elenini. Elenini is a spirit created by human consciousness that has no connection to physical reality. Elenini are invoked when a person needs to say, the devil made me do it. I don't want to take responsibility for my actions. And then you form a community saying Elenini is our political landscape. Every time there's a problem, MAGA blames Joe Biden. I don't think Biden's all that powerful. At some point, they may need to take responsibility for the problems that they are creating. And to the extent that they're generating Elenini instead is the extent to which the problems never get solved, and is the extent to which the problems never get addressed or dealt with consciously. You can't fix a problem until you identify it. And as long as you're blaming an invisible, non-existent, bogus, and heretical spirit for the problems in the world, you are guaranteed that you will stay stuck. Does that make sense? Sarah, you wanted to say something about all that, please?
Yes, Bob, I just wanted to add that calling on any forces, the force is the force. What the force does is determined by the intent that is put on it. So calling on Ogun or the energy of Ogun to protect drug dealers, because the intent is to protect drug dealers, that the Ogun is not a person. Ogun is an energy. It only responds. It's a call and response. And so if we're understanding how it's just like working with fire. If you make a fire and you want to cook food, that's what you do. You cook food. The intent is to cook food. If you make a fire and you want to burn down someone's house, the intent is to burn down the house. The fire is still the same fire. It is still fire.
I see.
So what the problem is that, and that's why it's important that we have unconditional love and good character, so that when we approach these forces, when we approach Allah, we're going to get with the intent of a good heart, the action or what we're trying to achieve. It's through intention. It's through your perspective, and it's through intention. And that must be clear in everyone's mind. The other thing, Baba, you brought up, and I'm not going to stay on this because I like the way this is going. When we're speaking of male and female energy, the male energy is being interjected. It's being one that proceeds outward, and the female energy is one who proceeds inward. The two dynamics create a bubble. The bubble is a plasma orb. The orb is the defining pattern that creates matter. In other words, that thing that creates the outside of a thing, it's the skin of whatever you're manifesting. That is gravity. Gravity pulls the two polarities together. It makes for a force. It makes for a thing that is manifested. It needs to be understood that when you are bringing something into the world, when you are manifesting something, your intention is important because you have the dynamic of push and pull. Push being the negative, the positive energy, which we call male, only because it is in motion, and the pull is because of the female energy, which we call negative energy, only because it is a pulling in, not because it's bad or evil or light is good and dark is not. Darkness is always, there would be no light, none, not a drop of light, not Ella, not anything, without darkness as its foundation. So understand that these two dynamics are necessary. They are necessary to interact, to create an environment which you can bring in what you desire. This will not work without the complete understanding of the dynamics of negative and positive energies and their relationships. That's what Ifa does. That's what Iyami does. And that's all I want to interject, Baba.
Well spoken. Listen, you raised an interesting question. I suggested the idea that you can create a false spirit. You countered that with the idea that spirits are all neutral, and it's your relationship to that energy that determines the outcome. That's a chicken or egg conversation. We could probably spend a whole hour trying to figure that one out. But we do know that in either case, our intention as human beings is going to affect the outcome. And that's what the next line says. Elatakun kawagbueri elama dabo ajewaro elama dese ajewaro. Holy Spirit with string, meaning Holy Spirit with quantum entanglement, descend to accept our prayers. It's only the higher self that's entangled with everything that can actually hear what we are asking for and can accept our prayers, meaning act on them. And then Holy Spirit with lips of blessing embrace us. In other words, set the intention of our prayers into motion, and mighty Spirit with lips of blessing embraces. So that when we go into altered states, we then have the ability to translate the language of spirit into the language of humans, which is the role of Escher. And so that ability informs the process of expanding our consciousness by guiding us in a positive, creative, and unconditionally loving direction. You know, it's not about appeasing an angry God. That never has anything to do with any rituals I've ever seen in Africa at all, ever. And to give blood to an angry God is total nonsense. It's just not rooted in, that's a judgment. I see no evidence for the notion that blood will appease an angry God in our scripture and our spiritual practice or the tradition as it was given to us by our ancestors in Africa. I see manifestations of our faith influenced by other traditions that like that idea. I simply don't believe that it's truly a part of our faith. Baba, do you want to say anything about all that?
No, I just wanted to go back, if I can, to my brother Baba Evan's question. So it's interesting, Baba, because in the lines before where we were talking about the string theory idea, it becomes clear that our ancestors are talking here about vibrating strings of resonance. And so for our ancestors, this idea was not a theory. You know, the Westerners call it string theory. But for us, this was liturgy. It was the way in which we actually engage with spirits. So to say to be the ears of our prayers, again, it brings us back to this relational intelligence. And it says that Allah is not an object. Allah listens. And so the reason that I think this is important, because when you ask about the question of divination, I think there's 2 points. One, that the prayer of Allah, because I use this whenever, always before divination, and it's the more you engage with this as a technology of alignment with Allah, you can also begin to ask Allah to reveal to you the strings. And there will come a time when you will actually see the strings. And those strings, you will see those strings connected to everything around you, no matter what it is. You're connected to everything. And I want to take this back to the statement that Baba made about walking into a room and the diviner already having a perspective on why one is there, and it's because of the strings. So I think that there is that relationship that's very important, both in terms of the string connection to Orumila, to Ela, the spirit of manifestation, the string connection to everything around you, that relational intelligence. And in the moment of divination, the string connection to that person that's sitting in front of you, or the string connection between you as Awo, if you're divining for yourself, and Elah. And this brings me to another point, which we have to take up at a very different time, but I just want to mention it as a point of interrogation at a later date, that the Ifa system is a system of Elah listening. Allah is listening through the strings to the nature and the status of your alignment, or the alignment of the individual that you're asking about. It's in my perspective, this alignment that Allah is listening to, and these forces, be they feminine generative force or masculine generative force, the question of Ifa is a listening to the relationship of those forces. It's a question of the multi-dimensional receptivity that Ifa is listening to. And as Baba said, we can speak to that linkage. And so the prayer says, lips of our prayers to say what it is that we declare, which as Iyasero was saying, intention. The eyes of our prayer, what we witness, what we yearn for, and what we are willing to face. And so Ifa is teaching us here that Ori communicates, not just with words, but with sight, with breath, with gestures, with aches, and with longing. And so Allah descends on these seen and mostly unseen, but at sometimes seen chords that connect all beings, and comes to listen and to receive that which we cannot say and that which we at times wish to hide. Okay, so I think it's very important for the divination process to pray Oriki, Ogundasa, and to do whatever you can, which is mostly praying this as frequently as possible, to link yourself and to be aware of the strings. And that awareness brings with it the capacity to sit with Odu Ifa, not to interpret, but to sit with Odu Ifa and allow Odu to interpret. Abudu Aboye Baba.
Or she say, Niger, I'll get to you in just 1 second. I want to read the next line because it kind of puts a capstone on what Baba just said. All right. So the next line is Atikan Sikun Ki Oni Kiri Kari, which means from door to door, we remove the hinges that separate us from everything else. I mean, hello. I mean, how? That's so obvious, it's painful in a sense, you know? Anytime you know that people say, well, you can't like so-and-so because they're not a nice person. Well, no, sorry. Ifa says we remove all hinges. We don't make judgment. We try and find the pathway that allows us to experience our common link to the source of creation. And the prayer says that, you know? Atikam Sikun Ki Oni Ikari Yo Ikari. From door to door, we remove the hinges. So, having explained that, my tolerance for listening to your really good reasons why you can't meet with so-and-so, my tolerance for that is fast disappearing completely. You know, I bristle at it now. Any day soon, I'm not going to listen to it at all. The point of Ifa is to be able to do anything, anytime, with anybody for any reason and hold your center and continue to knock those hinges off the door so that we can find a common space, common ground, and an ability to move forward. If we don't do that around the issue of racism and slavery, we're doomed as a planet. You know, and we can be mad and angry and upset and accusatory and judgmental until our gums bleed. But at some point, we need to find the common ground that moves towards resolution, I think. All right. So, Niger, you wanted to make a comment or a question? Let me see you when you speak.
Okay.
Turn your camera on.
Just a minute. Yeah.
There you go.
Yes, good day, everybody. I apologize for asking this question very late because the topic already passed. When Ia was talking about how the Orishas are neutral, the question I'm asking is that if these Orishas, we know them for having certain tenets and personalities. For instance, Shango represents justice and so on. So are you telling me if I ask Shango to do something immoral, he will do it? Does the morality depend only on the Awo that is invoking these Orishas? So that's the only factor, or is it that they will go along with it or would not go along with it, or is it most likely it's another entity?
No, listen. You need to hear your own question. If the purpose of the spirit of Shango is to manifest justice and fairness, it's impossible for Shango to do anything that contradicts that intention. And you can pray to him to protect you in criminal activities until you lose your voice, your teeth fall out, and you get blood gushing from your gums. Shango is still going to be the defender of justice and still going to be the arbitrator of unfairness, in the sense that we can only go so far away from our essential good nature before we bump into ourselves. And what I was arguing is that people who believe that Shango will protect your drug shipment are misrepresenting the Ashe of Shango for purposes of their own egotism, jealousy, and greed. And those three factors will cause a distorted image of spirit. And I would argue creating a distorted image of spirit, which has the potential to become an El Nini, so people will think the spirit is active in the world because they'll be protected in their drug deals until they're not. So, you know.
Actually, well, you answered my question.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on. Ipoin plain juni si lekun pune kun agadani sekun pune j. He or she who removes the hinges from the doors opens the eyelids for tears. But that saying is, in the moment we tear down the artificial boundaries that separate us from each other, we experience a moment of grieving for having acted foolishly up until that moment. What do you think, Pedro? That looked like a light went on when I said that. No lights. Anybody want to argue with me about that besides Dr. Camilla? She looks like she's ready to argue.
No argument, Baba.
Bob, I believe that I got misunderstood as usual.
All right.
But I believe that and that particular verse you just said is so beautiful and it's so enlightening, because that's exactly what happens. Enlightenment. That's exactly what happens. And then to the case of the gentleman who was talking about and I said, it was me that said the intention affects what the energy is. That's what I said. And so I'm addressing that by saying, yes, the intention does affect what you do. What we don't understand is that we are putting human personalities on forces of nature. That thing is is problematic, because by doing that, it actually limits the ability of what a person can do. That's what I'm saying. The limitation is on the person. It has nothing. Fire will burn you. Fire will burn you unless you understand fire, and then you can work with it. I have seen people who can sit in fire, but that's because they have the ability to commune and understand fire for its abilities, and that they're not trying to manifest something to take over fire. They are communing with fire. It is a very big difference. And so it's the understanding, and it's still the intention. I stand by that, but I think it was misunderstood, because what we do is we put human attributes to something that is not human. That's all.
Well spoken. Opayemi, did you want to say something?
Yes, I was just trying to turn on my video. With the last verse that you said, it was so beautiful, and what I took from it was that it's the removal and the breaking of all of the blocks and resistance and lies our human experience tells itself to open up into the awareness to connect with spirit, source, Elah, and essentially the truth of everything and nothing. Yes.
And it's also saying, I believe, that all the doors are created by judgment. All of them, no exception, 100% true. That's why we have a taboo against making judgment, because we're just generating unnecessary problems for ourselves.
Well, and then those judgments, those beliefs are all created within the human mind. Right. So if we remove the human mind from the equation, we become in full balance with a source. Yeah. Beautiful.
Well, the next verse is saying, Ogunda Sa. Listen, the connection to the spirit of Elah, which is the spirit of light, is manifested in the Odu, Ogunda, Osa. Ogunda removes obstacles, and Osa destroys everything that doesn't work. That's an extremely significant clue about how we do the work we do. It says you cannot hold on to stereotypes. You cannot hold on to old ideas. You cannot insist that people share your vision of reality. You cannot claim to be right. You cannot expect to remain comfortable and experience any kind of spiritual growth. Ogun Dasa, that's about as disruptive as it gets in terms of the energy of Odu, but it's that energy that connects us with the spirit of light. Let me finish this thought, 7, and then I'll call on you. And now I forgot okay. Yes, so the spirit is, the verse translates, the spirit of iron, the spirit of wind, opens the door for the immortals. In other words, once we clear away all the boundaries, we create an opportunity for the appropriate Ashe to enter our consciousness and create a moment of enlightenment and growth. Yes, 7-star, do you want to say something?
I'll go, Baba. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the elders for bringing about this very enlightening topic. I have a question. If you have an individual that is a non-initiate, far as Ifa is concerned, and they have issues, can this person within the realm of Ifa logic actually handle and maintain these relationships with issues not being initiated? Just
Yeah,
curious.
I'm going to answer that question. You speak French? 7, do you speak French?
A little bit.
Yeah, okay, I have to answer you in French because I've got a taboo against bad language. Any elder who places a restriction on anybody who is interested in Ifa, whether or not initiated or not, is not speaking rooted in our faith. They're just shoveling shit, and they need to be ignored completely. Everybody has the potential to do everything. Everybody has the potential to connect to everything. Everybody has the potential in any given moment to be a medium of spirit. That's the way we're wired as human beings. That gift comes from God. If you think as a priest you're giving somebody some gift that makes them special, you need to go become a Christian or something, because you ain't doing Ifa at all, not even a little bit. This is the universe. I can't give you anything as a priest. When I initiate you, I simply unlock that which God already gave you. In the language of Ifa, it says specifically, I tickle open the portal that connects you to spirit. You know, I've seen people that have been initiated and have everything who cannot do anything because they're so engaged in being judgmental of other people and acting like they're all-knowing poobahs that they can't really access the process. They cannot access the Ashe, and they cannot function as a role model. Being initiated or not initiated is irrelevant to that process completely. Terrence Howard's the best beacon for Ela I've ever met in 80 years on life on Earth, and I'm sure he has no idea who Ela is. It's our job as Ifa practitioners to recognize that energy and recognize that spirit when it becomes manifest, and not try and judge it and limit it and tell people they're wrong. Listen, when I first got exposed to Ifa Orisha, all the doors were closed. Nobody would let me participate in anything. In response to that, I went into possession for 3 days with Ogun and Shango, identified a bunch of problems within the community, and I said if these problems were not addressed, it was going to cause a problem in the world. And within 3 days after that possession and that message, all the elders in the Bay Area were arrested on charges of running an organized shoplifting ring. So Spirit spoke through me and spoke the truth. And the level of upset that created, I'm still struggling with it at times, you know? But that doesn't change the fact that the message was spot on.
I'll go, Baba. So does that mean that all one is missing is just the proper incantations?
No, it means all that's one's missing is the proper intention. Ifa is a system of spiritual growth that's the same through hundreds of different cultures. The words we use to focus our intention are the difference than the words used by my Transylvanian ancestors. They're different than the words used by our Native American ancestors. But the key factor here is intention. If you are a person of good heart who intends to help others, you will be effective. And to put any kind of limit on that because you're not playing by the rules is total nonsense. You know, in Ifa, in Ifa as it's practiced in Africa, they recognize the concept of initiation by grace. and they will give a person a priestly function within the community with absolutely no experience of initiation. The issue is, what can you do? How can you assist us? And how can we work together? And the other issue is, if you have that ability, the community will come together and initiate you, whether you can afford it or not, or whether you're ready or not. It's called recognizing the door that has been opened and giving it a name.
I say, Baba, I want to I want to ask you a question that you had. You made a comment about Terrence Howard saying 1 + 1 = 1 rather than 1 + 1 = 2.
That's not what he said. Let's get it right. He said 1 × 1 is 2. That's a different thing. Very, very different. He says
Okay.
1 + 1 is 2, but he also says 1 × 1 is 2, and he also says the square root of 2 is 1, and your calculator will say the square root of 2 is 1.4610 something. You understand? And that's nonsense. That's a deliberate deception to keep you from accessing the center point through which the spirit of Allah comes through the sacred portal of complete balance between yin and yang. That's a deliberate effort by the few who control the money to keep you from connecting to spirit. And he somehow figured out that he wasn't going to be influenced by that. And, you know, God bless him.
I just wanted to ask, because I wanted to clear up something in my mind. Because if that logic was being utilized, when you have one mother and one father, that 1 + 1 actually equals 1, because they typically have one child, or they may multiply, but it's still a singularity.
But you're using Western mathematics. African mathematics is different. Be clear, mathematics is a human invention designed to describe reality. So in the Western world, 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 2 is 4. In Africa, 2 is half of 1, 4 is half of 2, 8 is half of 4. So 3 is half of 1 + 1. So in other words, in the African system of mathematics, which Terrence Howard is using, everything emanates from primal unity. In the Western form, there is no primal unity, and everything becomes more and more separate by virtue of expansion. And so in order to describe those two different systems of perception requires different systems of mathematics, all right? And here's the key point. Terrence Howard has used his system of mathematics to engineer a drone that outmaneuvers the drones created in the Silicon Valley. You understand? He's engineered the implication of his ideas, all right? Einstein, who used the Western version of mathematics, was unable to engineer anything because his mathematics has nothing to do with reality. And so we were told we had to believe in him to make sure nobody figures anything out. And so we've got a choice. You know, are we going to embrace an African form of mathematics, or are we going to buckle under the pressure from Tyson, what's his name, who trashed Terrence completely instead of really listening to what he had to say? We can use two different forms of mathematics for different reasons, but we need to have the courage to look at the consequence of using those different systems. The consequence of using Terrence's system is that it gives us access to 0-point energy, which is an unlimited source of energy, and the point of connection with a longitudinal light beam. Einstein's math doesn't do that. So the question is, are we allowed to have a choice, or are we obligated to conform to the narrative? Who asked me that question? Was that you, 7-star?
It was. I say, Baba, thank you very much.
I don't know if I'd answered it, but I get a little jacked up by that. Sorry. All right. So where are we? Ayani le ni awo egbei le ekole rogodo ni awo omi ni le. Near the crack in the wall where the elders meet, peace ascended to heaven and did not return. All right. So if you connect to perfect harmony, your life pretty much comes to an end. The fact that we're in a process of learning means that we access the infinite balance of Allah and the infinite balance of light and dark. We approach that from the point of view of a crack in the cosmic egg. We approach that from the point of view of let's look at what's broken and see how that vision of what's broken gives us an understanding of a bigger unity. Once we've embraced unity completely, our life is over on earth because we've learned all the lessons we need to learn. So the verse is saying that the purpose of divination is to examine every crack in the cosmic egg, everything that's broken, everything that separates being born homo re re into needing Omo Iwa Pele. You understand? If there was perfect harmony, we would all be God. Everything would be one. There would be no creativity, no perception of self, and no interaction leading to unconditional love. Baba Falokun made that point before we came on the air with me here, and he's very perceptive in that regard. I also think it leads to the inevitability is as you get older, the more you study Ifa and the older you get, the less you need it. The more you enter the realm of the universal, in which case the need to be culturally specific of any culture becomes a hindrance rather than a help. It doesn't mean you don't need to study while you're young. It doesn't mean you don't need to focus on learning. It doesn't mean you don't need to embrace the protocols and the norms. But it does mean that you can reach a point where all of that becomes irrelevant. The late, great Meta Hochi, who was one of the best manifestations of the spirit of Allah I've ever met, before he passed away, told me he was seriously considering becoming a renunciate. In other words, he was going to renounce his position as Awo and become a spiritual presence in the community for everybody. Boy, that put a veil of silence over the room, didn't it? Sorry. I am not denigrating our faith. I'm saying that we have potential as human beings to move beyond the limitations of our faith. It's called spiritual growth. Who said that? Somebody agreed with me. That was disturbing. Was that you, Mama Africa? Thank you.
Yes, sir, Baba. Ashe.
Eriwo lo shorun kodomo oniki akisi odia woodi. Upon blockade, the priest for blockade is called for earth. He asks us to call upon the priest of peace. So, in other words, that's saying that part of our spiritual growth is to create community on earth based on unconditional love. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that we haven't been successful in that regard. And so Ifa's calling us to take political action, to lay a foundation so that people do not suffer from the illusion that blowing up Iran is a good idea. You understand? And the reason people think it is a good idea is based on lies and deception. You know, Obama went to Iran, got a settlement. The Iranians agreed to stop processing nuclear energy for bombs. Trump says that Obama paid him for that settlement. He didn't. He lifted the embargo on money that was theirs. That's a different thing. So what that was is a mutual trust leading to an agreement that held in effect until America unilaterally decided to break the treaty and blow up military installations on Iran based on the unfounded fear that they might attack us one day. Odu is saying specifically we need to stop at that level of foolishness. Baba, do you want to say anything about that? That was a bit of a...
Yeah, we're good, Baba.
Oniki ake si ero oniki ake se egun osusu abaya babamba. Upon the shrub thorns, he asks us to call. Upon the blockade, we call the priest of the blockade. So it's asking us, it's telling us that as human beings, we have an obligation to go to the heart of the source of the EB or the disruption. We need to agree to experience the pain, the thorns, right? We need to go to the blockade, the place of friction, and do what? Upon the 6 shrubbery thorns, we call to Orun to calmly ascend. Holy Spirit descends. So we're asking our Ori to go to the invisible realm, and we're asking the invisible realm to come to earth. In Yoruba, that's called Ile Ife Orun Wae. May the unconditional love of the invisible realm come to earth. That is our obligation as initiates. Yeah, so it goes on to say, Allah remove the thorns, remove the point of friction, remove the pain, remove the need to blame people for causing us pain. I don't know if we have to go over every sentence. Do you want to comment on that, Baba? We're over time here now.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we're good, Baba. Keep
I
moving.
think we're good. I think we've covered the basic ideas. Let me ask folks, Samia, do you want to say something?
I'm just stunned. This is the formula for, peace on earth, like you said. I'm reminded, Baba, of the story of the great peacemaker and the condolence ceremony, which is exactly this line about shedding the tears and removing the blocks and clearing the way that then ultimately created the great democracy of the Haudenosaunee that is supposedly the foundation of American, of course, not democracy. But this is I just hearing the interpretations from this angle now later in my life is just blowing me away, because that's what essentially was channeled in the teaching of the great peacemaker as well, from the native perspective, which is this the spirit of Allah. And I've seen it, like you said, again and again and again and again and again across traditions. It's Allah. You can call it whatever you can. It's like, I'm just really moved by today's session and everything that was shared. So thank you, Baba.
Baba?
Yeah, who's talking to me? Is that Baba? Yeah,
Baba, yeah, just to follow up on my sister's comments, the Odu is very explicit in that vision of peace. It says, Ella ni wa jul dio dundum. At the front, Ella becomes peace. Ella ni e at the back, Ella becomes balance. Ella ni agbedeni gio dibororo in the center, Ella becomes ease. Ashe.
Oh, listen, I'm Mama Africa. Tell us the best botanica in the country is reopened and doing business and everything's good in Chicago, please.
Boy, Baba, we are well. I just pulled up in front of the shop now. I'm picking up some items for one of the EIs. But we're still at a temporary location, but we are blessed to be here. We are open 12 to 5. Our stuff together more situated, because it was a lot to move. But yeah, we're grateful we're here. And we appreciate all the prayers of the XA for you, Baba, for stepping up and consistently making sure that we was okay. I appreciate that, and also all the prayers from everybody in XA. I do play.
I do play. Yes, listen, that's evidence of the power of prayer, in my humble opinion. Do we, there's a lot of people, I hate to pick on people. Raise your hand if you want to say something. Otherwise, we're going to call it a day. Also, while you're thinking about that, if you want a sneak preview of the school, send me an email. I'll send you the access code. If you promise to look at it and tell me if it's clear or confusing. Once we've done that for next week, next Sunday, I'm going to announce to the world that we've got the school up and running. If you want to be really, really helpful, tell your friends that are not part of this group that they can learn Ifa at this particular app or venue or whatever the heck we want to call it. And that'll help support our work. It'll help allowing us to keep initiations affordable. I'm committed to that idea. I had representatives from our larger community assure me this week that since my initiations were affordable, they couldn't have been done correctly. And I made it real clear that I had no interest in their opinion. So we're still fighting that battle, but having the school be up and running is very, very helpful. Seven, did you want to say something?
Absolutely, Bob. I want to ask, is the spirit of Allah the only entity that's being present during initiation? Or is there other entities as well?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. The Orisha initiations are for individual chakras. People are amazed that Ifa talks about chakras, but the Yoruba word for chakra is Iwaju. They wouldn't have it as a word unless it was part of the tradition. So, Obatala, Ochosi, Yamaya, Eshu, Ogun, Oshun, Oya, Shango, and then the feet is Egun. We initiate for each of those chakras individually. The initiation for the spirit of Ela is the ability to open all those chakras at one time, which is an extremely energetic and powerful experience. But once you have a connection to the spirit of Ela, you can shapeshift into whatever spirit is speaking in the Odu that's required to address a specific issue. So it becomes the fundamental portal that connects us to all spirit. So being the father of secrets, Babalawo, God forbid, does not mean you know a lot. It means you can be possessed by everything. That's what the word means. Ianifa means you're the mother of that which can be possessed by everything. It means you have connection to spirit. Now we study, we learn stuff, we try to understand that connection, but the word itself is a reference to our ability as mediums. And to say we don't act as mediums is like saying we're Christians, but we don't talk about Jesus. It makes no sense. Ivan, you wanted to say something?
Now, why are you going to make that simple like that? You're going to have people thinking that we really know what we're talking about.
Oh, that would
shame
be...
on you. Just shame on you. This thing got to be, woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. This can't be simple like that.
Everybody tell Ivan to be nice to me. Would you have a comment? Or are you just busting my chops here? What's happening? I guess
No, I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate everybody that's on this call, because it really is simple. It's just that we have a lot of people that have made a mountain or a ton of money selling people lies. The power is within you.
Exactly. And listen, Ifa supports life. Ifa can't support life if it's too complicated to understand.
Gosh,
Ifa is a very simple set of ideas. Ifa is the idea that if you live in harmony with nature, you will develop good character. Good character balances the head and the heart. When you balance the head and the heart, you can communicate with spirit. That's all there is to it. That's all you need to know. Everything else is frosting and gravy. You know, and we study the frosting and gravy because, you know, it keeps life from being boring. But if you're a good person and you treat people with kindness, there's not a lot I got to tell you about anything. You figured out the whole reason for being here on Earth, right? If you find that difficult, then we got to figure out why you find that difficult. You know, I was really, really blessed. I don't know how I did it. My father was raised in an orphanage on the res, and all his brothers and sisters were First Nation people, and he was the kindest person I've ever known. So I was really blessed to grow up in that environment. And rather than try to learn it, I get confused when I don't experience it, which makes me kind of the odd guy out. But I was blessed by that childhood experience, and I thank him every day for that. He was the spirit of Elah, he was the spirit of Rumini, and he was clearly the spirit of Obatala. I never heard him have an unkind word, never heard him speak French. I wish I was as good at that as he was, and I'm grateful. So ultimately, our job is to figure out how to be nice and then role model that behavior. The rest of it, we can argue over or disagree or dispute or whatever. But if we lose sight of those fundamental components of our faith, then we're just doing drama and nonsense, in my opinion. What do you think, Carolyn? Ms. Huff, do you agree? Ia is another one of our resident scholars here, so I'd like to get her opinion. So what say you, Woyemi? You look perplexed by all this. Talk to me.
Not perplexed by, but I think that as I listened to the verses today, but I think even more so to your commitment toward keeping our culture honest and affordable and being able to be of help and service to people, it's come at the right time for me. So I'm just appreciative.
Well, that's good. Listen, for me, based on, I'm going to tell you something that's a little embarrassing, but my father was not Native American. He didn't think he was Native American. But every year we'd take a vacation in the summer and we'd drive to a different reservation because for him that was family. So it really taught me at an early age the value of culture, but also the idea that, you know, I may have been to Africa 6 times. I may have studied Ifa for 40 years, but how the hell am I going to sell somebody their culture? That didn't make any sense. You know, my father did not try to do that with his interaction with the Native American world. Sometimes I have to charge just to get through the day, and I just grapple with that all the time. But I'm not in the business of trying to sell any culture, even my own Hungarian culture. You know, you ask me questions about that, and I'll talk about it. I have always answered every question that I could without charge or without hesitation or without asking you if you're worthy or initiated or blah, 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 blah. We're talking about living in alignment with nature. How can anything that supports that be a secret? And the answer is it can't. It shouldn't be. It's not. And the fact that we've made it a secret is a denigration of our own ancestral wisdom. You with me, William? You understand what I'm saying there?
No, I definitely do. And I'm thinking of all the ways in which people have created ways to gatekeep those birthrights for humanity. Whether it's, I'm not a member of any tribe, although I'm descended from several. The ways in which, even amongst familial lines, that those blocks exist, where people are kept away from their birthright, their language, their customs, because of a government that has created roadblocks. And I'm just thinking of the economic sanctions on us as a culture and as a people, when our ability to help ourselves through indigenous customs is gatekept. And I'm just appreciative of this entire series because you're giving people the tools for us to manage our own lives in that way. So I'd way bye-bye.
That is certainly my intention. I'm grateful that you peeped it and are supported. Thank you. So who else here? I know Akila has got opinions about all that. You want to say something? Help us close it out. I must have mispronounced her name. Akila?
Hey, Baba.
Yeah.
I'm just soaking it all in. I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, so are we in the same ballpark here?
Yeah, we are. I'm sure I'll have some questions during the week for you.
Well, listen. Okay, so let me talk about that. Just one last thing. Faladara, dígame.
Hi, Baba. Hola.
Hola. ¿Qué pensar usted?
No, estoy bien. Todo bien, Baba.
Gracias.
I'm good.
Did I show this? Falokun Fatumbe. That's my email address. If you want the code to look at the school app, write me, and it's all lowercase. Falokun Fatumbe. Falokun Fatunmbi at hotmail.com.
I also placed it in the chat so that you can go and copy it.
Good. And if you look at it and you have questions or anything's not clear, now's the time to tell me, because I want to make it available to the larger community, but I want to keep a minimum of confusion, let's say. And so that would really help me if people take a peek at it. And also know this: every month we're gonna add more and more information. Approximately half of it will be free, another half will be a minimal charge, I think. So we're also, one thing we haven't put up yet too, we need to put up a GoFundMe so people that want to support the work of the ELA, keeping initiations affordable. A GoFundMe page would definitely help that a lot.
Baba, as far as a subscription, you don't have to do a GoFundMe.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good. Okay.
Yes, there's a subscription. And also I will be posting the link to the nonprofit and you can make donations there. Okay. That way we will ensure that everything goes to the Egbe Iwapwele, because if we do a GoFundMe, they take a percentage of that.
That's true. And
if you keep everything organic within the
if you send it.
Hey, listen, guys. So, that was the divination school. I hope that you guys got some information on that. I hope that you enjoyed that. Coming up, we're going to do a show in the next few minutes that's talking about dating, actually dating with a purpose, dating divinely with Olusuga Arilola. Let me go ahead and share that information with you guys real quick. So, how to date divinely. We're going to do that show. It's going to be coming up in the next few minutes. So, I'm going to put the link in the actual chat room, and hope to see you guys there. All right, thank you so much. Let me put the link in the chat room. So that's the next show that's about to come up. So please, let me put that here. Let me click that link real quick, and we're going to be going over there. But thank you for the ones that stuck around for this, the people that are interested in NEFI. I know this channel does a lot of different things. It covers a lot of plethora of subjects, but, at the end of the day, we're really trying to get the word out there, about other types of spirituality, and things like this. So again, the show is called How to Date Divinely. How to Date Divinely. And it's with Olusuga Arilola. All right. So I will see you there. Thank you guys for being here. Peace.
Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I search the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, way out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you,